royal family, the House of Lancaster. And in a few minutes I'll just set up the background to the battle. Suddenly turned on King Edward. He drove him out of the kingdom. He formed an alliance. Her dream had come true. All she had to do was cross the channel.
Now, we have some archers over here. Here we go, running across the field, led by their captain of archers here, an old stalwart. It was his birthday yesterday. So the gentleman sprinting across the field there turned 70 yesterday, believe it or not. I know. We don't know how he does it. So, they appear to be facing off some Lancastrians. That's interesting. It appears to all be kicking off rather earlier than we thought it was going to. Oh no. Going through Lancaster, they're being welcomed in, by the look of it, with open arms. Ah, right, okay. They are just moved themselves into position. So we have Lancastrian towards your right now. As I was going to say, as Professor Ronald will tell you in a moment, there is English longbow coming onto the field now. This is the absolute weapon du jour of the medieval army. Men, of course, have had to train since they were boys. They all know how their bow works. They could arch, they could shoot in their sleep, basically. And it's numbers, it's all down to numbers. We have so many longbowmen. In his hurry, he's lost his helmet, but he's got to get a message through to Margaret. I don't know how far he's ridden today, but he's ridden a long way.
That this is a period of history with such big and famous battles in which cavalry play virtually no part, and there are very few horsemen. Everybody now had to dismount and fight on foot, and those of you on the far right there can see the Lancastrian army, Margaret of Anjou's army, beginning to march on.
Devon, yeah.
The Earl of Devon's one of the solid, unimaginative, utterly reliable followers and nobles. On his helmet, the banner, the motto, the symbol of the Prince of Wales, right up to this day. And her wonderful, professional, multinational bodyguard behind her.
The young prince, of course, has had a little battlefield experience, but only in as far as he has given the command to execute a number of men at a previous battle. This is his first battle where he's actually taking the field as a commander in his own right, and he's going to take the centre. As with many medieval battles, this is for king, and you've got the Duke of Somerset coming into the centre, and then you have he and Wenlock in the centre.
Right at the centre now, following the bodyguard of the Queen, is the man who will command in the centre, alongside the Prince and the Queen. He is Lord Wenlock. He's a highly intelligent man, but not a reliable one. He has changed sides repeatedly. Today, he happens to be fighting for Lancaster. If he gets this one wrong, he'll never fight for anybody again, because he will be dead. And the rest of the Lancastrian centre is following on behind. Rash, brave, impulsive, violent. A born gambler. Watch this man, folks. He's the sort of crazy, mad dog of a gambler on whom the fate of nations often turns. And the rest of the Lancastrian right wing is following behind Somerset and his men in their distinctive blue and white surcoats. As Somerset is leading in his division to the Lancastrian right wing on your left. 550 years to get used to it, so we've made a head start. And there goes the burly figure of the king. Edward was tall, powerfully built. Hastings is like the Earl of Devon on the Lancastrian side, a rock-solid, loyal, dependable, unimaginative kind of noble, one of Edward's staunchest and best followers. But the character Richard III, one of the most controversial monarchs in English history. This is Richard's first battle with a major command. He's still in his late teens, a very young man. Development on the battlefield at this stage. That's why there are very few guns compared with what is to come. However, if you're a reenactor, you soon learn certain things about gunpowder. It's not only quite dangerous, so a gunner's life is the most risky in reenactment, but also the powder settles upon your tongue and your mouth when it drifts off the air. And you inevitably swallow some, and it's quite a powerful laxative. So there are and avoid bloodshed as good Christians of the time. So Kat and I are wagering that there'll be an attempt to avert the battle, and you'll be able to see the royalty on both sides very plainly in the middle of the field.
So they're just shooting off their last shot, sure that the weapons are cleared. What you want to do is a stray shot to catch one of the leading characters unaware. It wouldn't go well.
And we can see to the left that Margaret of Anjou and her young son are leading out their bodyguard, and Richard is behind him, his middle brother, the Duke of Clarence, tucked neatly to Richard's right.
He's got out bareheaded as well.
Yes, and the nobles like Hastings are gathering behind in the Royal Guard. And out comes Margaret and Edward, Prince of Wales, to be struck. And the prince has struck back. And now comes the Queen to confront her tormentor. And she slapped him across the face. 40-30, your serve, Edward. They've separated. The parley has been an utter failure, turning into a slamming match between the two Edwards. And that looks exactly what is going to happen when the exchange of handguns.
So I see the Pavise, the large shield with the 3 hearts on it of the Hartley Company just going to the back now. It could be that the artillery pieces, having fulfilled their function of awe, wonder and terror, are maybe going to be taking a bit of a back seat now.
The whole point longer is rushing forward to attack. So Somerset is going to get the engagement he wanted, with the entire Lancastrian army going in, or at least that's what he hoped.
They're going in somewhat ragged format there, so at the moment we've got the Prince of Wales leading his flank in first, the centre flank there, along with Wenlock, this wily old character, who, as Ronald said, has changed size a number of times.
And now the Lancastrian army has halted in the centre to reform, except that only the centre has halted. And Somerset is leading on his, gesticulating, trying to get the centre to come on.
I suspect, yes, he was anticipating back up from the centre, wasn't he?
Yeah, Wenlock is not moving. He's holding back the rest of the Lancastrian army. and the impetuous, the reckless Somerset is going in right down to the far right to assault Richard of York, the Duke of Gloucester, Richard of York, the younger brother, in a head-on crash. And this is the first great joining of battle, right in front of you on the far right. You on the far left, don't worry, you'll be seeing the end of the battle.
The men-at-arms engaging, most of the men with... Here the captains there issuing commands to their troops. We don't know what the medieval commands actually were, but from later commands in the 16th century, they were likely to be fairly short, easy to understand, and they would have been, I imagine, unique. It isn't going to work quite as planned. You can see now here, he appears to be retreating.
Yes. Somerset is not only defeated, he's not only failed, he's also humiliated. And when you humiliate a man like Edmund Beaufort, Duke of Somerset, there's always going to be trouble. And now, with Somerset then coordinated right at the beginning, they might have broken through. But they're now attacking with 2/3 of their army, having wasted 1/3, thanks to Somerset, to prove in this his first battle, and he couldn't be doing better in terms of inspiration, courage, and leadership to his men. The only problem is he could be getting killed.
The King's Centre there just came forward, again at a run, and they are engaging briskly, I think you would say. In the meanwhile, I can hear Somerset shouting about what's just happened. I can hear his commanders shouting to the troop, and I know that Richard, Duke of Gloucester, is there giving his men a resounding pep talk, because they held their ground remarkably well there. They didn't yet deploy that cavalry.
I see some Irish troops fighting on the Yorkist side. The Irish were very keen on Edward. His family had treated them very well. Equipped with the round shields and the not allowed to call kilts. Kilts came along later.
The Irish long shirt called the Lena, and it's a saffron yellow. It's all looking rather messy in the centre, isn't it? I couldn't tell you who's getting the upper hand here.
Well, there's no control over the men from the commanders anymore. It's a melee. Some of the Lancastrian and Orcus troops have actually fallen back, exhausted. And there's a decreasing number of people still with the energy to keep pounding at each other.
There's a captain of archers over there on the Lancastrian side, just rallying his troops as well. They say after the last battle of the Wars of the Roses.
Maybe sometimes he does, but that's no way to fight. Armies are in line, they're cooperating. Even Somerset is formed up in a perfect formation with the centre and the left of the Lancastrian army. And the battle is starting to move down the field from right towards left.
You hear the king there rallying the troops, the cry of a York for York, the men shouting for...
Somerset's actually lost his plumes from his helmet. Those magnificent blue and white feathers are gone in the Lancastrian attack to try and remedy the mistake that will be harder to break through. And the centres have crashed into each other. The bodyguard of King Edward driving back the Lancastrian centre like a hot knife going into butter.
That was an attack with some ferocity behind it.
Yes, but the Lancastrians have contained it. It's more like a rubber band being stretched and then springing back. And those of you on the crowd line can see Somersets and Richardsburg engage with each other yet again. And once again, Lancaster has failed to make a breakthrough. And once again, the Lancastrian, which as you know is the most exhausted, is being pushed back. And now the Lancastrian centre pushed back, whereas the opposing wings on the far side, that's Devon and Hastings, are still in action together. Once more, the commanders are losing control. It's man against man in a horrific slogging match in which stamina and skill are the two commodities that will count for most.
Rather stopped being a tactical fight. I'm getting some heckling from the back of me here. I think we've got some Margaret of Anjou supporters down there. Absolutely. But it stopped being a tactical fight. It's rather more, as Ronald said, more just a case of a war of attrition now. Who can push hardest? Who's going to fall over last? It looks rather as though Lancastrian centre is retreating in some very straggly kind of order. Men are getting tired now, making mistakes, falling over. Now they're taking mortal blows.
I actually can't see a single commander at the moment, save for the Prince of Wales right in the centre of the field, with his army falling back around him. The Lancastrians haven't been beaten. The Prince is still right there with Lord Wenlock in control, but the Lancastrian attack has definitely failed. Some of Somerset's men are still struggling valiantly, with Somerset fighting ferociously in the midst of them, but even they are separating. The exhaustion of both armies gives a break, and what is happening is that champions are going forward to fight each other in single combat, giving a chance for the main troops on each side to recover energy and morale. And of course, watching their best swordsmen fight man against man, sword against axe at times, again raises or deflates morale according to the result of the single combat. And these people, ladies and gentlemen, actually are the best swordsmen among our own reenactors. It's a real honour to be called forth to engage in this way in front of you. Those of you in the centre can see a Cornishman with his surcoat with the chuff just being killed, and a second Cornishman coming forward, and looks as if he's being killed in turn. It's not a good day for the Cornish. But his assailant has been wounded in turn.
Taking on, slightly successfully. Well done, sir. Runs him through. It's a mortal wound. Step in a fresh corpse.
Laying into each other, and Somerset's actually been wounded, and he's driving his battle axe into Wenlock in turn.
Oh, Wenlock's down.
Wenlock's down.
Wenlock's down. Wenlock's... Wenlock's dead. Well, and the beautiful smoke ring goes to...
Yeah, and look where they're going. They're going straight into the Lancastrian centre, which has just lost its commander. On the far side, the right wing, Hastings is going in to engage Devon. But whereas Devon is still alive and leading forward his men to prevent the shock of having to take an enemy attack stationary, the Prince, left alone without a capable general to assist him, is taking the full brunt of King Edward's attack right in the centre. But the Lancastrians are holding. And Richard is not yet joining the attack. He's waiting, and now he's leading his men forward. Richard, the young Duke of Gloucester, younger and frankly idiotic Duke of Somerset. I know I'm being rude about Somerset, but ladies and gentlemen, I ask you.
You're quite annoyed with him, aren't you? There we go, there's Richard, Duke of Gloucester's forces going straight into Edmund Beaufort's troops, over right in front of your very eyes on the crowd line. We've got the Yorkists. Oh, there's Somerset. Look.
Somerset's running. Somerset is running away. He's abandoning his own men. His younger brother's just been killed. They're going in first, fighting against the Yorkist royal guards, while the two royal leaders stand back at the rear. The Prince and the King waiting to see what happens, and what happens is very fast. The more numerous Yorkist bodyguards have killed all of Prince Edward's soldiers, and now the Prince is fighting for his life and has killed the first Yorkist man of arms to come at him, answering him. The King is actually calling the Prince illegitimate, saying it was the Duke of Somerset and not the King who is his father.
Oh dear.
The Prince is alone, apparently doomed, but resolute, brave, and defiant. You have to admire his courage. His grandfather was Henry V, the hero king who won the Battle of Agincourt. His blood is now pounding in the veins of that boy. And now they prepare to fight. And they're doing splendidly. And the Prince has actually landed a blow on Edward's back. It won't have gone through his armour, but it's humiliating. And it will have weakened the King. And they fight again. And the Prince is getting in the blows. The King is older, tiring faster. Maybe youth and energy will win. But the Prince has been mortally wounded. A slash right across his midriff. His sword is dropped. His blood and his strength are oozing out through the front of his body. The King knows he has won, but stands back and watches the Prince starting to die. But the Prince has got his sword. He's picked it up. Wounded as he is, holding in his midriff. He fights again. And now, his wound goes into the back. And he kneels. And the King taunts him by showing him the crown of England on the royal helmet. As the King's herald kicks the Prince, rolls him on his back, and Edward, who stood over 6 feet tall, towers over the young man and rolls him onto his front and kicks him again and stands over him and pulls back his head, goading him to beg for mercy, to cry for mercy. And the prince shouts, "Lancaster!" and the king cuts his throat.